Hey, everybody. This is Allie from the Genesys developer team coming to you live. Sorry, we're running a little bit late here due to some technical difficulties. Some of you know, this is our second DevCast, and as will be expected, probably anything can happen here. So today's DevCast, if you guys give me 1 second, actually, to make sure that we have, I'm looking at our attendee list. I'm just waiting for that to complete here, and then we'll get started. Just doing some checks with the team here to make sure everybody can hear me because, you know, feedback loop. It looks like we are good. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for sticking with us through our learning curves of new applications. Today, we're going to have a live tutorial with Jason Mathison, who is one of our lead software engineers from PureCloud. He's going to be teaching you how to use PureCloud data actions before writing a call so that you can improve customer experience in some unique ways. Let's see. So before, hopefully, let's see. Pardon the duplicate slides, part of the learning curve. Let's see. So we are recording the tutorial. It will be available for download. Right now, we're still working things out, but we're going to archive these so that they're easily accessible. But in the meantime, you'll be able to go to our webinars page on genesys.com and re-access if you need to. Let's see, you'll have a resource box while Jason's teaching that you can use to, it includes documents on what Jason is talking about. And of course, if you're having any problems with the app, please email me immediately at developersupport@genesys.com. Obviously, again, we're having some learning curves here. We are going to try to play some audio later on that may be choppy, so if you can bear with us through that as well. I think I'm good with all of the disclaimers here. So I guess if you guys are familiar with the format, we will be having a 10-minute Q&A at the end of the tutorial with Jason. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them during the tutorial, and if we can answer them, we will. Otherwise, we'll save them till the end. I've done, I believe, enough talking. If you want to take it away, Jason.
So hi, I'm Jason Mathison, lead software engineer here. I have been working on the PureConnect and PureCloud products for over 20 years. So I've kind of seen all this stuff for a while. Data actions are basically kind of our answer to how you do data dips in Architect or scripts or Dialer, all those kinds of places. So there's a challenge with the webcasting software we're using where audio from my computer doesn't want to make it out to everybody. So earlier today, I tried recording the presentation. I'm going to try to play it. And if it messes up, then we're just going to do it live. So I'm going to try the recorded version, and we'll see what happens. All right, so for this demo, I am going to solve a terrible customer experience that I have every couple of weeks. I like chicken wings, and there's a local chicken place that I order carry out from every couple of weeks usually. And every time I call them, the experience is basically I call, I get the IVR, welcome to the wings place, music and ads. So after a little while, someone picks up the phone and they say, can I put you on hold? And I'm like, then I'm on hold. So there's no more horrible music and ads. And then when they finally pick up, they ask me for my phone number because somehow the phone system and the system they use to put in orders are not in any way connected. So I have to give them my phone number, and then they have to figure out who I am and finally take my order. And this can take a while. So let's see if we can start by reproducing this customer kind of scenario and then make a great experience instead of what we're starting with. So I'm going to start inside of Architect. and I'm going to just simply transfer the call to a queue. Because that's basically what the Wings place is doing today. So I'm going to send it to the inbound queue. So call thing for inbound calls, and we can put a little message here. Welcome to the Wings place. Please hold on the line for the next available winger. And I'm not really going to worry about failures very much, so we're going to publish this. And for the first cool little trick, if you didn't know this already, if you are on your system and you go to your dial pad, you can actually grab this flow name and call flow name at localhost, and we should be able to hear it.
Welcome to the Wings place. Please hold on the line for the next available winger.
Okay, so we've basically got what we started with, which is just send it right to a queue and wait for an agent to become available. After 20 years of doing this kind of stuff, I know we can do better than this. So the first thing we're going to need to do is be able to look up this whoever's calling by their phone number. So to do that, we're going to need to start by creating an integration. And we are going to create a web services data action because we're going to be calling, we're not calling Salesforce or Zendesk or one of the kind of ones we have first-class integrations for, but the web services data action, you can call pretty much anything you want to call. And then under configuration, there's a section for credentials, and that's where you kind of set what kind of authentication do you need, maybe basic auth or something user-defined or maybe something OAuth-like. In this case, since this is just a demo, I'm not needing any authentication at all. So, and then most importantly, activate the web service or else nothing really works. So, and I forgot to give it a decent name. So let's fix that. Wings place integration. Okay. Next, we're going to need to create actions for actually contacting this web service and doing a data dip on it. And I would like to point out the first kind of tooling that I would tend to use. We recommend not trying to first manipulate whatever web service you're trying to work with from data actions first. We'd recommend using a tool like Postman because it's just much easier to kind of play with it, tweak your parameters until you kind of know what you're doing. So in this case, we've got a API that is where we're going to do a get and use the phone number to get details back about a particular caller. Another tool that I use is this is actually being driven by mockable.io, which is just a great tool for, I can say what kind of request it'll accept. I can hard code some output. So if you go on the developer forum and you give me a, here was the output from the web service, I often will go into Mockable and stick that in here, and then when I'm trying to figure out what's going on with an action, I can hit this thing and get the same results back that you were getting, and that makes it really easy usually to debug what is the problem. Okay, so now we need to create an action to hit this web service. So we'll see that we've got the Wings place integration, and we're going to create lookup customer by phone number. And when I first create an action, usually the first thing I do is, because I've done this in Postman, I just take whatever I've been posting into Postman and just kind of hard code it. And so here's the request URL template. So this is the URL that we're going to hit. And as a first step, all I do is just run that and see, does that work? And I can see them getting output back. So far, so good. So now I need to say, well, okay, this phone number is currently hard-coded, which is no good in a real system. So I will add an input contract. Basically, what is architect going to send this data action in order for it to do its work? So I need to add a string, and we'll call that phone number. And just as a note, you can't have any spaces in your input contract. Your input contract needs to be very simple, but we don't support spaces here because it can make other things really hard. So now in my configuration, I can get rid of the phone number that was hard-coded, and you'll see there's available inputs right here. I can just tap on that, and we'll go to the test mode, and now it's asking for a phone number, so 317-555-5779. And we see that it successfully ran, and we got results again. So we're making good progress. Next, we need to see, what does this thing return? So I've looked up this customer by phone number. What information do I want to take out of this and return? Let's, for now, just take their name and maybe their customer ID. So we'll go to the output contract again, and we'll add first name. And we'll add surname, quote, and we'll add customer ID. So let's add it. And test again. And let's see what we get. Oh, error. Validate output against schema. So it's saying the output didn't match what I said the output would be. And it says error location customer ID instance type integer does not match any allowed primitive type. Allowed is string. Oh, so let's take a look. Customer ID, there's no quotes around. This is actually a number. So let's fix customer ID from string to number, and let's test it again. There we go. And so we can see, oh, I did that wrong. That's not supposed to be Mathison, it's supposed to be surname. Run it one more time. And as you can see, I'm very iterative in how I work through issues. I keep testing over and over again to make sure that new things that I've added worked. So it does have a pretty good feedback loop. Okay, so now we have a first name Jason, surname Mathison, customer ID 1. Perfect. So now we can start working on this IVR again. Application starts. So in the future, if I add new actions, it'll find those right away, but I cannot add a new integration without just restarting the app. So that's why I did a refresh. So now we're going to call a data action. Maybe if I can drop it in the right spot. Actually, I'm going to do that first. Okay, so the category is the same as integration name. So the links place integration. Oh, and I didn't publish this yet. So that's an important thing. When you hit, while you're testing it, before you've kind of settled everything, you can't see it in Architect because we didn't want the inputs or the outputs to possibly change after you published an Architect flow. So you actually have to hit save and publish here, and it's going to warn you that once you've published this, you cannot change what is going to come in or out of that action. So let's change this and see if that's enough to get what we need back. It's loading. There it is. Lookup by phone number. So now typically what we would do is we would put something like, for this input, we usually put something like to phone number call.annie.subscriber number. So what you've got here is call.annie is a built-in variable inside of Architect. So anytime a call comes in, this is the number of the person who called you. But this is just a string. So we turn it in, say, to phone number, and that gets us data structure that you have more information from. And so like subscriber number, for example, would mean if my E164 number is +1 317 555 5779, subscriber number would drop off the +1, so get rid of the country code and give you just kind of the US number. So there's a variety of options if you look in the help to see what you could get back from this. But for purposes of this test, for this demo, we're going to hard code this. So 217, 555, 5779. And then we'll look at the success outputs. And so we're going to set each one of these to a variable. So first name, surname, and customer ID. So now we should have a customer name. So from this, assuming this works, we can do a couple things. We could personalize this a little bit. So we could play audio and maybe say, hi, first name. Oops, wrong kind. Add expression, first name. And well, let's just publish. Let's see if this works. So publish. And then we'll call it back.
Hi, Jason. Welcome to the Wings Place.
So you can hear that it did look me up by phone number and get my name. So while we're in here, the first thing we would probably want to do is set participant data. And we can, I'm not going to go into too much details here, but you can set basically a variable for this call. So you might call it screen pop, and you would probably then assign something like customer ID. So that's an expression, customer ID. And at this point now, some of the resources that are included with this demo are pointers to how to set up screen pops, but you could then take this customer ID and then at the very least, when it gets to an agent, it'd be nice if it popped the right page so they already know who you are and could see your order history or whatever, and instead of having to ask what your phone number is. So that's kind of the first improvement we wanted to make. And that's just like the smallest level of what you would expect a system to do. So instead, but it doesn't solve the problem that if you don't have enough agents, I still might have to sit on hold while the agent's helping other customers. So what if we could just eliminate the need to talk to a person at all? Let's go back and look at what we have in our action here. From the web service. The web service returns an order history. So, there's a good chance that if you ordered something the last time, that's probably what you're going to want again next time, because people tend to order the same things over and over again. And in fact, you can see my last two orders were the same, and the third order was something a little different. So what if we captured this information and returned it from our data action? So we'll go to contracts, and well, if you remember what we talked about before, these contracts are now fixed because it has been published. And now I want to add new things, and that's a problem. So what I'm going to have to do is go back to the top level action page, and let's take a look at this. So we can see the action I created, and there's these three little dots here. It's got edit action, copy action, and export action. In just a second, we're going to copy the action because I want to do what it was, or extend the capabilities of that action. But I do want to point out with this export action, if you go to the dev forum and you have a question or a problem with the data action, I will probably ask you to export your action and paste it into the thread so that I can see exactly what you're trying to do. It basically just dumps out a JSON file. So if you wanted to copy it and send it to your friends, you could do something like that too. So we're going to copy it. And now we're going to look and see that we have the same information that we had before. It's just not published. So now let's incorporate more of the data that comes back from this web service. So we see, first of all, that we have an array of order history that comes back. So we need to add a new entry, and that is an array. And the array then has objects in it. So you can see the little curly braces. So we'll add an object. Oops, let's see. Object. This doesn't really have a name, but you can I'll just put order here so it looks right in test mode. And inside of it, you see that we have order number, which is a number. We have order date, which I don't really care about right now. Let's just keep description. That's probably all we really need. So we'll add an extra string. And of course, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to test. And I will say that this UI is a little buggy about showing things that are in an array. For some reason, if I run it a second time, I think it'll actually show the right stuff. Okay, so now we can see we have the information we had before, but we have order history where we have order, order, order. So we've got 3 orders back. So the actual web service, here, let's look through the operations for just a second. So in test mode, it shows you all the things that happens as part of running an action. We validate that what you sent us is simple JSON. We validate that the action is just valid, like it doesn't have any just kind of syntax errors. We do authentication. We show you the URL, the end URL that we're going to call, any headers that you set, body template. Here's the key one, execute. Execute is going to show you exactly what we got back from the remote web service. Because there is the capability to kind of slice and dice this response up and reformat it if we need to. For this demo, I'm not going to be doing that, but we do have that capability. So if we look at this, we can see that the way it came back was an array with objects, but Architect doesn't really handle that sort of complexity of responses. So what we have is called flattening, which is this little checkbox right here. And after it's been flattened, we turn kind of an array with objects into a list. So order history.order type, we have a list of different types. And these are all in the same order. So this dine in here matches this date here, matches this order number here. And so that's what we return back to Architect is basically lists instead of trying to return complicated objects. So it looks like we are getting the stuff that I wanted. So I'm going to save and publish this. And now I'm going to have to change this IVR out because I used the old object, but now I need to switch it to using, edit. Now I need to use the new data action that has additional outputs. So I have to kind of do this again, but you'll see that this will be actually a lot easier. Literal. Okay. We need to set these to variables, but they'll all still be there, the ones we made before. So that makes life a little easier. Surname, customer ID. And finally add descriptions. Okay, so we should be kind of back where we were before. And now we want to do something a little cooler. We want to be able to, let's play your most recent order. So I guess we have to check to see if you have a most recent order. So that is with the logical decision. And for our decision, we're going to check to see if count pass dot, we'll say maybe descriptions. If that is greater than 0, it means that we have some descriptions. So we'd have something we could play to the person. So we will do that, and we will then ask them, do you want, let's see here, collect data. Oh, collect input, there we go. So we are going to play a message to them. So home Wings place. You can see that your last order was for and then since it's a list, the way you get the first item on the list is bracket 0 like that. And we'll say press 1 to order that for carryout again, or else stay on the line to place your order with one of our wingers. And we will set this thing to just collect 1 digit. We'll wait 5 seconds, no timeout. Oh, and then we have to say reorder. Let's see here. We've got this, but we don't have any way to actually reorder yet. So let's go back and look to see at our API. We have a place repeat order API that we can call. So we're going to have to go and make a new action. We'll say repeat order. Oops, sorry. First I have to say what integration is. Now we can say order. And we're going to do the same sort of thing again. So we can see that this is the sort of input that is expected. So we will set up an input contract with, let's see, what was that, a number for previous order number, and then customer ID. Configuration is, let's see, this thing is a post. So let's grab the URL and put it here. We need to tell this thing that we have a post. And at this point, you'll see actually that it creates a request body template for you, which is just basically going to say, take these 2 inputs and just send it directly along to the remote web service. And we'll take our input that worked in Postman and we'll run it. Successfully ran, we got some data back. Okay, so now we can finish up creating our contract. So order number, so the new order number is a number. And we got a price for the order that we just placed, which I think is a string. No, it's also a number. And ETA. ETA, which is a string. So let's test this one more time. All right, successfully ran. We got good results back, so we're going to save and publish this so we can get to it in Architect. So now we're going to say, so we got to the point where we asked them, do you want to reorder? But now we need to figure out if they said yes. So if we get a successful back from the collect input, and I'll say just in general, basically every failure path is always just going to fall back to transfer to ACD. So if anything goes wrong, just send them to a person and the person can solve it. But if things go right, hopefully we don't even necessarily need to talk to a person. So for the decision, we'll say, let's see, there we go, art equal, reorder equals the name of the thing, and then did they press 1? And if they did, we want to call a new data action. And so it is part of Wings Place integration, the new place repeat order. And so if we should be able to grab the order numbers, we're going to be, everything is based off the most recent order, which is going to be 0 in the list. And customer ID. And we get back out of it a new order number, which I don't really want to play to a person there. No one pays attention to that. But pricing is pretty nice. And ETA, that would be nice to know. Okay, so we called this action. We got success, so we can just let them know what happened. So play audio, and we can say, thanks for your order. The total comes to let's see, price. That's a little, so we really kind of wanting to say it as a currency. So just make currency the price, and then you have to say your currency type. So US dollars. And then, so we sold in our price, and your order should be ready for pickup in, and then we'll give them the ETA. Okay. And at this point, we can just disconnect the call because they have made their order and we've told them all about it. All right. Let's publish this and see how it goes.
Hi Jason, thanks for calling the Wings Place. I can see that your last order was for one small order of sweet Asian wings, one pretzel. Press 1 to order that for car out again, or else stay on the line to place your order with one of our wingers. Thanks for your order. The total comes to $18.75. And your order should be ready for pickup in 20 to 25 minutes.
So now we went from me having to wait on hold to talk to a person and tell them information about myself to just simply calling in, getting the opportunity to just make an order I made before without even having to talk to a person. And I can be in and out of that phone call in just a minute, which is just pretty amazing. So hopefully you've enjoyed this, and we will pass this off to Ali and move on to Q&A here shortly. Okay, I don't hear Ali, but we're live again. If you want to ask any questions, I will do my best to answer them. Let's see.
Can you hear me now, Jason?
I can hear you.
Jason? Oh, hi everybody. I'm back. Still learning the user interface, but as Jason said, it looks like we're going to have some 10 minutes of Q&A. I just saw another question come in. Jason, do you want to actually just address the question from William just over the
Yep, not a problem.
read it out loud and then go ahead.
Okay, so they asked if I could explain again the collect input task in the architect flow. So let's get back to that. So the collect input item is basically, it's a way to take in like someone pushing 1, 2, 3, 4 on their phone, for example. I'm not sure if you can do speak or push numbers. I was just doing something simple, so I just looked for a phone number. So when you get to this step, you're going to have it say something. So in this case, I had it read the person's order back to them, the most recent order they had back to them. And right here, input data name. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, am I? I'm so sorry. Let's see.
Is it working, Jason?
I'm not sure. I don't see an audience yet.
The app we're using is a little bit
oh, there we go.
slow. I
Okay.
see it now.
Okay, so I'm showing the collect input step. The audio gets played before it waits for you to push something. So I had the audio set to say, thanks for calling. Here's the last order that you made. Do you want to make this order again? If you do, press 1. The input data name is where you're going to make a variable, so it's going to store whatever they push. I set it to only expect 1 digit, so if they push 1, great, or if they wait 5 seconds, or if they push any other digit, then when we get to this, so if they don't push anything, then the collect input is going to take the failure path. If they do push something, let's say they pushed a 7, it's going to go to the decision node, and it's going to compare what they pushed, which is this reorder choice. If they push 7, then the answer to the decision is no, and we're going to go back to the queue. If they pushed 1, then we're going to continue on to call that second data action that I created the place repeat order. Hopefully that explains that.
Jason, I wasn't watching the screen at the time of this explanation, but I saw another question about how to set the variables within the. Could you show us, like, in the
I can.
Right-hand side? Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're asking, there's variables we set in Architect. How can we use those variables in a script? So the things that you see most of the time when you're creating a variable, you'll see like flow dot or task dot whatever. So like here you see task dot first name, task dot surname. Those are local to the flow. If you want to send it further down the line to like a script application, then you're going to need to use a set participant data. That is a much more durable way to set a variable, and that will be attached to the call itself. So what exact attribute you need to set and the value you need to set it to, that's going to all depend on how you have your own things configured. But set participant data is the way to take something from a data action and permanently attach it to the call. Okay.
Cool.
Then let's see. The next question I see, is there a reason for copying the action instead of editing it? So the issue is, once we create this, so we've got this flow that we've created. And so, for example, let's say I wanted to change the data action, the first one, and added a second input or remove an output. Well, you may have already published a call flow that is based on some action that you have created. And if you changed the contracts to the action, if you changed what the inputs were or the outputs were, you could break call flows that are already running. So in order to prevent that being possible, once you publish an action, once you make it available for Architect or scripts or dialer to use, you can't change the inputs or outputs any longer. You can still change the stuff in the middle where we pick the URL that we're calling, and there's lots of other more complicated things you could do. But so you could kind of change how it takes the inputs and ends up with the outputs, but you can't change the outside of the black box kind of. Those have to stay the same. Let me know if that answers or not. Let's see, next one. Next one was a quote. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to let everybody know, like, if you have a, if you just want to mention whether or not something is or isn't clear, or if you just need to say something to us, just feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A submission. But that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Okay, and I will say, so I am very active in the PureCloud developer forum. There is a specific room for data actions. So if you post there, I will see it, and I usually respond pretty quickly. So we can definitely go into any depth that you need to go in that room. Let's see. There's a question about how to set call attributes from a PureCloud table result. I'm not really sure. That might be a good question for potentially the architect room in the developer forum. Or at least post a more specific question so I can see exactly what you're looking for. Can we use data actions to obtain data from within PureCloud? For example, check to see if something's an external contact. So there is a whole specific integration for talking to PureCloud itself. So that's kind of confusingly named PureCloud Data Actions. And so if you use this integration, your configuration is going to be basically a client ID and client secret. You'll create an OAuth client credential. You'll put those in here, and it will take care of authenticating to PureCloud for you and simplifying a little bit the URLs that you need to call. So anything that is available publicly through our API, you can get to through a data action. And in fact, that's a very common use case for data actions. And while I said you normally want to use Postman, we have a very nice API Explorer for PureCloud. And so that is a great way to dig into what our product offers as a platform. And so you can work with that, figure out what your request needs to look like, and then work to make a data action from there. Let's see, I don't see.
Go ahead.
I think this one's been answered. I don't see any more unanswered questions. So I'll wait for another couple more seconds. And if you have any more questions that haven't been answered, feel free to put them in right now. And
Yeah.
if you think of any questions as you're using it, absolutely feel free to come to the developer forum. Oh, let's see. Nope, not a question.
Jason, do you have, unfortunately, I just have to go ahead. Another question.
Let's see. Well, you know what? One other thing I forgot to put in my video that I want to show real quick, another kind of important thing. So let's copy this object real quick. So place repeat order, I'm going to copy it so that I can modify it. And here's the key part. When you have these contracts, there's this little star you can do, which are, by default, things are not required. But what often can happen is you type something in and you think you're getting results back that you wanted. But in fact, you weren't quite getting the thing back you thought. So let's say, for example, order number, it's got a space in it, but let's say you thought there was no space. So let's test this real quick, and you'll be able to see that customer ID 1. So let's see, I thought this should work, but hey, it failed. And it failed with the output schema. Basically, it didn't get what we expected. And because we were expecting order number, because that's what we put in our contract, but if we look at the execution results, it was actually order space number. And I can tell you personally that I've messed this up a number of times. So making liberal use of required can save you a lot of pain and suffering later when you're trying to figure out why you're getting empty results back. All right. Next question, will using PureCloud data actions affect my API fair use policy? You do have public API will, okay, well, it gets complicated. If you are using a data action on a call, there is a limit to how many data actions you can make per minute for your org, but it's pretty high. If you are making these calls through something like scripts, which actually run through our public API, then you would have both the public API limit plus the internal limit we have for how many data actions you can call. Let's see.
Did you see the one, the multiple array object?
Oh, yep. Let's get to that. How do you handle multiple array objects from the flattened list in Architect? So if we go back to our earlier action where we did the lookup of the user, and we got so our good friend 5555779. So when we see, if we look at the flattened output, what we had originally, we have these 3 calls, or 3 orders. So we've got 3 orders. But once it's been flattened, each of these separate objects become parts of parallel lists. So instead of having like an order history object or array that has objects inside of it, we kind of smash the whole path together. So order history.order type, and it is now an array or a list with all the different values, and they keep in the same order. So now you can get to order history, order date, and you can see that it's these 3 entries. So this dine-in entry 0 matches up with this date and this order number and this order history description. They all kind of, let's see. We go from this style where you've got an object with all these things to a list for order number and a list for order date and a list for description. And because processing lists in Architect is easy, but it doesn't have the capability to handle objects. So then what ended up happening in the IVR itself was when we got our list of order history, and now we said, well, let's see if the number of things in the order descriptions list is greater than 0. If it is, it means we've got some sort of order description back. And that tips us off that we can now play that to the person and see if they want to reorder it. Let's see, what's next? Can we manipulate in Architect a third-party chat, email, or another external interaction and use data actions based on the attributes of those external interactions? I mean, I don't know as much about how to manipulate third-party object routing.
Oh.
I'm probably not the right person to answer that. But you certainly can. Anything that has got a relatively simple public-facing web service, you can make a data action for and poke at it from Architect. But there's a lot of questions there, like especially talking to third-party chat systems that are outside of the scope of anything I'm very familiar with.
I think I was kind of wondering if this person meant whether Architect controls other interactions where we could use this. So, for example, like, are we building the flows for chat or flow for email or another type of channel like social media where we could probably get data or extrapolate data from those and do the
again,
same thing. So is it limited to just calls? Yeah, I just wasn't sure because if that's the case, then yes, data actions can be used for, I think, whatever. Jason, you'll have to tell me if you know I'm wrong, but for like an email, you could make.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're routing, like if we're doing first-party routing of email through Architect Flow, you can definitely use actions there. It specifically said third-party stuff, and I'm probably not the right person. But if you want to send a note to the forum, I can get you in touch with the right person to talk to about that. Okay, next question. Did you cover velocity macros? I, in fact, did not cover velocity macros in this presentation because I was only trying to spend a half an hour, and it turned out making simple ones took about that much time. Maybe based on, we'll have to see how well this worked out for everybody. If we like it, I'm certainly happy to do another one where we do a deep dive into more of the slicing and dicing data action or of the responses, and that gets heavily into velocity macros. But I just wasn't trying to get that complicated today. Let's see. Yeah,
I know we have a lot of questions. Jason, do you want to go for another couple of minutes here, or
sure.
What? Okay, all right.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's see. Is there a way to run a data action after the interaction has been completed? For example, send call details to an external API. That I don't believe that is available today, but it is something that we are aware that people want. I will make a note of that and get the right person, see if I can get them in touch with you, or if you want to make that comment on the forum or on, yeah, why don't you make a comment about that on the forum and we can get a decent response back to you. Let's see.
Thanks for staying for some extra time. Jason, and for everybody who's staying to listen and asking questions.
One question is, can you show an example data action to pull a conversations attribute data, like historical data? Off the top of my head, I cannot. I could probably figure it out in a few minutes, but that would be not much fun to watch. But that's another great question if you want to put that in the forum. That's something somebody else might be able to answer, or I might be able to answer, but I can't do that live without any prep. There was another kind of response about third-party object routing. That's another thing that's probably a great place to put on the forum, where we have time to actually look at it. But I don't know much about third-party object routing. It's not something I work on.
I just want to say, if for the external third-party data, if you guys want to email me at Ali at developersupport@genesys.com, I have some experience with this. If you want to email me and just tell me more about what you're trying to do. Go ahead, Jason.
I think the only other question I see right now, what if you have an array of objects? I think at that point it breaks. Flattening is kind of limited in what it can do. So if your input is really complicated, then what we might have to start doing is using, let me show you real quick. You start to use translation maps, and you might have to start ripping out pieces of the response using JSON path to actually get the stuff that you really want. That is powerful, but also kind of complicated and more than I wanted to try to demonstrate today. But like I said, if there's interest, I'm more than happy to have another presentation where we really kind of dig into how to tear things apart.
That would be awesome if you could come back and go in a little more depth. I think it looks like the questions have slowed down, and we're a little bit over, but we're still under an hour, so that's good. Jason, is there anything else that you wanted to add before we close up shop?
I'm going to look real quick and see if there's anything else I forgot on my cheat sheet as I was going along. Thank you very much for bearing with us, by the way, on getting this thing started. It's my first time using the software, so I do appreciate that. I don't see anything else for what I was trying to accomplish today. So I hope this gets people off and running using data actions, because they can really, we've tried to make simple things simple and kind of medium difficult things possible. So always looking for feedback. If you get error messages that are incomprehensible, or things where you could say, man, if you could just take this little rough edge off, it would be a lot better. Always interested to hear that kind of stuff. We really want to make this stuff easy to use and powerful, and get better customer experiences through figuring out the data about people and using that data in ways that avoid friction. So in other words, I want my wings, and I want them now. That's all I had to say about that.
Can you hear me, Jason?
I can.
Okay, good. Guys, I've been double muting myself just to make sure. It looks like we had a really great crowd. Thanks everybody so much for staying with us. Yeah, no, I know. I'm just letting them know it's been a great audience. But that one guy, no, I'm just kidding. Too many questions. No, no, this was really awesome. We're doing a new thing, and I'm glad that you guys are sticking it out with us. We're hoping to make this as valuable to you all as possible. So again, well, please let us know if you have any feedback on how we can improve this. And, even if positive feedback, if you liked it, if it was helpful, please let us know so we know what to keep doing and what not to. Again, there are some resources listed for you in the window that will help you to replicate Jason's demo. And if you don't have PureCloud for some reason, developer access, please email me again at developersupport@genesys.com. We can talk to you about how to get one of those and becoming a partner. But I think that's all we've got for today, and we will have something for you next month, and we're trying to do a surprise for December. So I hope you guys can join us again. Cool. Thanks. And I think we're done.